Here we have an 88 Chevrolet. A friend of mine's truck just died outside my house last night. Just started it to go leave. Started and died. Chevrolet, I ventured to guess that the fuel pump was bad. And I guessed right. Got the tank dropped out of it there. It's pretty simple to diagnose these kind of things, actually. Rather than checking fuses and trying to guess at all kinds of things, all I did was open the hood, took the air cleaner off, and had him put his gas pedal down about halfway and look down the barrels of the throttle body and had him crank it, and I didn't see any fuel being injected in there. My second part of my diagnosis was just simply to take some carb cleaner, shot it into the throttle body, had him crank it again, and it fired right up, so I knew it didn't have fuel. After that, it's still really simple to figure out why something isn't getting fuel. I just crawled under it. I disconnected the three-way connector on here. I just happen to know from working on GMs, the gray and the purple are the power and ground for the fuel pumps on them. Stuck my test light on there, not to the fuel pump connector this end, because this the fuel pump end. You check from the end of the harness that's on the truck, because that's what's feeding power and ground to the fuel pump. Stuck my test light in between the two leads that I knew was power and ground to the pump, and had them key it on. My test light turned on for about 1.5 seconds, so I knew that that was good, and then I had him crank it, and it stayed on steady while he was cranking it, which is exactly what it's supposed to do. As soon as you get keyed on, the PCM will ground the fuel pump relay for 1.5 to 2 seconds, and then when you're cranking, obviously the PCM reads crank signal, knows that the engine's trying to be started. It'll turn the fuel pump on then too. So I had power and ground at those times to the fuel pump, so I know the fuel pump was bad at that point, unless there's some oddball something with the fuel system. But what I did after that is I had the connector already disconnected. I took a battery and just a couple test leads, ran straight power and ground to the fuel pump. I didn't hear it run. Otherwise, I should have been able to run the truck off of the separate battery and separate power and ground going to the fuel pump. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't hear the pump run. I couldn't hear anything there. So you can always hear the pumps run if your ear's right up next to it, and if you have your radio off and you're not trying to crank the truck over. If it's quiet, give power and ground to a pump, you'll hear it run. So, and I didn't. So I knew that it needed a fuel pump. Took it apart, and we're getting a new one for it tomorrow. One thing too is I always recommend putting Delphi fuel pumps in Chevrolets. I don't know why the Carters and the Airtexes fail, but they fail miserably. So gonna get a Delphi for this. That's all I'll put in a Chevrolet. Nothing else is worth putting in. I like to stay with OE fuel pumps. They just seem to hold up a lot better. One other thing I thought was worth mentioning, he said his four-wheel drive quit working. Kind of the same deal. Rather than checking fuses and other things and guesswork, just crawled under it and I checked the actuator to the four-wheel drive. On these trucks, all they have for a four-wheel drive actuator is just a little heating element right there. You can see it's got a hex on it. That's just a plastic heating element inside there. It's just got simple power and ground to it. I have the connector disconnected right here. It's a 2-pin connector. Some of them have 5-pin connectors. This one happens to be 2. I have power and ground coming down to that, so that confirms that the entire circuitry is good and that I'm getting power and ground to this heating element, but it's not working. So I know that either that is open somewhere in there, or it's got a different issue. I could take my ohm meter and ohm out this end right there, because that just runs straight up over the axle there and then to this heating element. I could ohm that, and if that's open, that would be another confirmation that that is a bad part. But in this case, I have power and ground to it, and I still don't have four-wheel drive actuation. So I know that that is the issue. The replacement is actually electric motor rather than a heating element that relies on heat to expand gas to move a rod to lock the front axle up. Ridiculous idea when you're stuck in the snow. It's 30 below zero and the snow's packed under this truck to have a system that relies on expanding gas from a heating element. My opinion. But anyway, worth mentioning. If you don't know how these systems work, they're not, they can be a lot to figure out. Look around online. The internet is just a free, open source tool of information. You can find out a lot of stuff on there. Like, for example, watching this video, it'd be a lot easier to find out, what's wrong with your truck, or this is specific to this vintage of Chevrolets, but there's a lot on the internet. You could find out a lot by reading and critically thinking about things, and just having a basic understanding of mechanics and electrical components can get you pretty far on a vehicle, especially older ones like this. Newer ones are a different story. You need a scan tool a lot more for newer stuff, but just thought I'd make this video, make my contribution to the free and open media source of the internet. With that being said, I think I'll call it a night.